of our book study. And the first question was about personal goals. And I have made some notes. And Melissa, would you like to start us off? You were talking about how to keep teachers focused on their goal. And I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about it, and then others might have some ideas, because it's something that I can struggle with as well. So that might be really useful.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't think it's the teacher's struggle issue. It's my own issue in being kind of keeping focused, because I do always want to, help them put out all those little fires that they have. But I couldn't tell you now, I've been to so many meetings, but I think it was some kind of a Facebook presentation, and one of these guest speakers shared how she just does something as simple as she writes an agenda for when she meets with the teachers, and she just keeps a running agenda like on a Google Doc, and she shares it with her coachees, or whatever you call them, the teachers that she's coaching, and they can add to the agenda, but they can also put stuff there like during the week. So if it's an immediate issue, you could address it during the week, or you just like block out 10 minutes at the beginning of your meeting to take care of that immediate need, and then go back to focusing on the goals, but working off that paper. So I'm about to start a new cycle with the teacher that I previously had a cycle with. So I'm hoping that this will keep her a little bit more focused, and me a little bit more focused, and be able to keep them, so that they're actually working towards their goal, as opposed to this week I want to talk about forms. This week I want to talk about my Gmail. This week I want to talk about this student or something, So we'll see if it works. I'm going to try it starting after spring break. We'll see if it works.
So my question to all of you, so what Melissa has just said is something I recognize quite a lot this year. Do you think it's been worse this year because of the situation, or not? Because for me, it's a new job, so I don't know. No, just the same.
I think it's a little bit better this year, because everyone's a little more vulnerable, like not knowing is okay. So I feel like the teachers at my school were more welcoming of the coaching process because of that. And I use one of the docs that are part of the Google curriculum for taking notes, so that like when we meet the following week, I don't remember, like I have to go back in and read, but I like Melissa's idea. Why didn't I share those docs with the teachers? Like I have it there. I mean, and it's all just, just writing down what we're talking about. I'm not putting my opinion and feelings in it all. So I don't know why I didn't share that with the teachers, because then they can see our focus too, and the accountability, and they could add to that. So that's something I'll do in the next cycle.
That's definitely what I did. I shared it on a Google Classroom with the teachers, because they needed the practice of the Google Classroom as well. So that was useful for me. But I found, like you said, I couldn't remember because there was so much going on, and you don't have time to remember it all in between. And it's back-to-back meetings. So I found that was really hard. Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. Anybody else got anything to add or any ideas on that one before we move on to the next goal? No? So Jessica, you had so many things that I was like, oh my God, how do they do it all? I just can't believe. So you were talking about shareable plan books, and you were talking about how to instruct people to analyze the standards, and learning routines that diffuse tension. So there's a lot there that you might want to tell us about.
Yeah, to go off what Kelly and Melissa were talking about, one thing that's really helped is having notes from our conversations, that are shared between myself and the teachers. But what I have noticed is that the tension in the classrooms are usually the same things, which is really handy. Grading. How do I grade all of this in so many different formats, especially with teachers who are doing a mix of blended and virtual. So, sorry, that's my laundry singing to me. It's laundry day. Sorry. This is my home office in the laundry room. But, having that shareable agenda has been really helpful. Although there is some, I do have to talk a little bit about who can see this. they certainly don't want me to, or I wouldn't want to share with like their supervisor, for example, what we're talking about, unless of course they ask, they ask me to. But I do usually find that that's been a useful tool. And then once I've been able to establish what's pretty similar amongst all the teachers, it's really handy to make some suggestions for example, now we're planning for training for next school year already. So we can talk about, hey, we should put this on the agenda for next year. How to reduce grading, for example. I think we talked about that too earlier in the week, too, with our book study chat about ways to make grading just a little easier.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by all of you already planning for next year. I mean, I'm not even planned for tomorrow yet, so I'm like so impressed with all of you. I was reading the slide, I'm like, it makes me feel guilty, really. So, and then Kelly, again, you were talking about laying the groundwork for next year. So how is that going?
It's going well. I don't know if other districts have it. We have, our teachers have to do a differentiated supervision plan every year, a professional development plan. So if they're not formally observed, they have to, put a plan together for professional growth. So I'm hoping to offer coaching cycles as part of their differentiated supervision plan.
Kelly,
So,
does this also apply to like to only new teachers, or is this all teachers?
All teachers? No, all. Yeah, every teacher has to do a differentiated supervision plan, unless you're a new teacher and you're getting formally observed. I think every 6 years a teacher gets observed, or I don't know how many years it is. Like, I don't even know anymore. I've been they come in and I just say welcome, but the majority of the teachers do this professional plan. But I thought, why not make the coaching cycle a choice? And then a lot of the work's done for them, because I'm going to have documentation. They're going to, come in, do the grip jam protocol, identify, and then we can do as many cycles as they want to meet that plan. So that's what I'm hoping, and I'll put it out there, and you never know who's going to volunteer.
That sounds amazing, right? And I'm also amazed that you only have formal observations every 6 years. We have them like every year, all the time.
No, we don't. I don't know if it's 6. It could be 4. It's been, I've been an instructional coach for so long that I haven't had a formal observation in a long time. Although they do come and do walkthroughs through my trainings, but yeah, it's a long rotation, for the teachers.
I'm glad they don't do walkthroughs through my trainings.
Oh, yeah.
Happy for them to come in with the kids, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, well, it's the same with professional training. They come in and I'm like, okay, teachers, you better participate. Like, I want to see responses and hands, and you're going to do this activity and you're going to love it. And, I'm begging you. I'm giving them the look as they walk in, like I used to give my students, like, okay, he's in the back of the room, It doesn't.
I have to say this. Has anybody done, we did this, we called them dog and pony shows when the district office would come through. Hope they don't see this. But, and we made a joke about, okay, if you know the answer, raise your right hand. If you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. So that when people walk through, who knows the answer? Every hand was going up. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
That's an excellent idea.
I know it's so wrong, but you know what? I'm being real here.
Yeah, I find that my students are much more, they do what I ask them to do, whereas teachers, they don't. So yeah, I don't know. And Roxy, you were impressive as well, planning for next year. And you were talking about a detailed plan, but also flexible for how your tech coaching program will work, which sounded really impressive to me.
I don't know how impressive it is. It's more like necessity. But I actually, what Kelly said, we're just literally having a conversation of kind of throwing that idea around, is we're trying to figure out like who's going to be, on the roster basically. And there is some thought about it being teachers that might be our new online teachers, if that actually happens, teachers that are like our teacher tech leaders, which are kind of like what the curriculum refers to as like the innovators, early innovators. But then my team threw out the idea of what if it's like a group that their PD days are actually like the coaching days. So it's like kind of built in. So I think that's a super interesting idea, and probably I could see how that might get some people that would be hesitant because of like what they think of as extra time that's built in. I think that could be a really awesome idea. So I love that, Kelly.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I think I need to suggest it. I was also interested, Roxy, because it sounded like you were working really well as a team. And for me, in my environment, that's not always the case. I just wondered how it was for the rest of you.
Well, I mean, it's just it's a little team of 3. So
Yeah.
and this is kind of a new thing, you know, it's a little kernel that we're kind of sort of trying out. And luckily, I think we're just, I don't know, we just work well together.
Good team.
At least that little team, yeah.
It's great. And Katie, as well, you were talking about strategies and systems for next year. How far have you got with that?
Not very. We're just working on it. I came in just this year as an instructional coach, and there had been someone as a technology coach previously, but it seems like his role kind of was helping teachers create things that they could use. And then he did run some different professional development, but not necessarily the coaching cycle type of thing. So I just kind of got my first cycle going with some kindergarten teachers and some first grade teachers. You know, the first part of the year was kind of just putting out fires and things like that, as far as just meeting the needs of teachers. And that was really what the position needed to be then. But now we're a little more status quo and where we need to be. Everybody's feeling a little better. So it was a good time to start thinking about how can we grow this instructionally. So it's been nice getting into classrooms and kind of taking teachers out of their comfort zone a little bit, but in a safe way, you know, being there to help support them through that. So now looking forward, how do we keep that momentum going and grow it? But like Roxy, we're a team of 3, but I'm technology. One of the girls is a special ed instructional coach, and then one is just kind of general curriculum, does a lot with literacy. So we kind of have to run cycles and do different types of things differently. But it is nice having those girls there to bounce ideas off of also.
Yeah, it's great being part of a team. I love it. Thank you.
It is, yeah.
And Kim, you didn't have time to write anything in the slides that I saw, although I may have missed it, but I'm sure you've got lots of goals. Do you want to tell us about one?
So I'm still in the process of trying to figure out how to integrate 2 roles into one, because I still want to stay in my role as library media specialist. But I feel like I kind of do coaching already, but and this year was actually a really good year for me in terms of having teachers being really receptive to ideas that I had and wanting to work with me. I mean, certainly nobody wishes for, you know, the scenario that we've just been through, but it was really, really positive in terms of, you know, I can't remember who said it, but about, you know, everybody was feeling vulnerable and not knowing what they were doing. And so that was really helpful. But moving forward, I'm still just trying to figure it all out. I don't have a real plan yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I've been working on your plan of collaborating with people across the college. So I'm just working on having meetings with what do we call it? I can't even remember his name, but somebody else in college I don't normally work with. So I'll tell you how I get on next week.
I love that.
And Gerardo, you were talking about your goal is to become a certified coach. So tell us how you're getting on. Where are you in the curriculum and everything?
Yeah, I have finished the curriculum, and I am trying to learn more, because I have told you about the difficult task to switch between authority figure or image to a collaborating image people. So I'm taking my first cycle after spring break, maybe in 3 weeks. Yes, beginning with a pair of teachers who will help me to practice my coaching cycle. And I am really excited to do that because my goal is get certified and encourage others to certify them. Because I have told you that in Mexico there's no clear position, a clear role for coaches, not for technology instruction, and only in those schools where there are distance learning programs well established is where you can find these positions. But anyway, in other public universities, there's no disposition, there's no role, and I am trying to install it and begin with this program in my public university. But I just tell you that I was a CIO, and then now I am just a teacher, and then people it's easy to get because they saw you like an authority people, then not like a teacher like them, and they I have reading now for the book study how to lead, and I have some love because people follow me because who I was, not because who I am now. And I'm trying to show them that I can help them just in that area because I've been teaching for 35 years, so I can help them. I can learn from them, but it's not easy. And so those are my goals for this year.
Amazing. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question then. So question 1, I think it was the question all about feedback and the assessment. And I'm going to come to Kelly first of all. Kelly was talking about, would you rather I stayed on the question or the answers? I don't mind. Let's go to the answers. So Kelly was talking about using the EDGE protocols, and I like this one, no opt-out engagement activities. So tell us all about those.
Yeah, the teachers are liking, especially like Jamboard, where, we're trying to get away from where just 4 students raise their hand, you call on the same 4 all the time. And they're finding that with a lot of these new tools that we're using or that they're using, everyone participates. So no one ever has to raise their hand because you're all going to answer every time, and they're starting to see the value of that, and they're getting feedback from the majority of the kids, which really can help drive their instruction. So Jamboard is like a huge favorite, where they use that now, daily, I would say. But, just even tools like quizzes, where they can see that immediate feedback and everyone's answering the question. So they like that, and I like it too. Like, the days of having to raise your hand and the same 4 kids answer all the time are starting to dwindle. So, it gives the kids a little bit more accountability and gives the teacher more feedback.
Thank you. And Jessica, you said that you thought that mode was a game changer, but tell me also about what you said about face, because you're totally right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, well, I have a senior creative writing class, and I also teach, other things related to fact checking and avoiding plagiarism. So, sometimes plagiarism happens, and it's not necessarily something that's so obvious, and a student didn't necessarily meet. It happens. It happens, and so having to deliver that information to a student. Sometimes, especially in a remote setting, having the option of them seeing my face so they can see, hey, I'm not mad. It's just, it's just something that happens. It's something that we check for. Here's what I found. And I try to keep it process oriented, not to say, oh, you you terrible person, you, which honestly, the majority of the plagiarism issues that I find are all completely because it's part of the learning process, not because someone is trying to Google their way out of something. Because, you know, all our teachers now are pretty smart. They're providing assignments that are not easily Googleable anyway. So yeah, that was the portion with Loom. I really like that part. But Mote was, I actually hadn't used it until this year. And if you haven't used it yet, give it a try, because you're right. If you need something fast and quick, like Mote's the way to go. Definitely lightens the load, you know.
I just like it because my students were so happy to be able to give feedback to each other like instantly. So that was really cool for me. Yeah. And Roxy, tell us about, you were talking about Google Forms and what you like to show your teachers with Google Forms.
Yeah, I love the way that you could set up those automatic responses. And I was actually just, I think, it was Spring Q, someone brought it up. And I love those sessions because even though like there's some stuff in there like that I know, sometimes it just makes you remember things where you're like, oh yeah, like I always forget to tell other people that might not know about that. So she mentioned the automatic responses, and then like how you can put different links to pop up if they get it correct versus incorrect. I'm like, oh man, I always forget to show people that. So and they're always really excited because it's not super difficult if you already, you know, understand how forms work, but like, oh my gosh, like the possibilities it opens once you can set that up for your students, I think is really powerful. So yeah, love the Google Forms response.
Brilliant, thank you. And Katie, following on from that with Google Forms, you were talking about making forms more accessible by using Chrome extensions.
Yeah, really mostly Mote, or even, you know, uploading a quick video to YouTube or through a Loom, just to make, you know, you can do your read alouds that way and things like that. So when I was in the classroom, I was still putting things on Google Forms, but then pulling kids to my table to provide the read alouds. And it really is nice that can kind of just be done digitally and not have to single them out and things like that. And it's a lot more simple now. I feel like it used to be pretty cumbersome to try and get those things integrated with forms, but with Mote, it seems to be a little more user-friendly.
I just like it because it's quick, Melissa. For me, it's just the quickest thing I've found. That's why I like it, because sometimes I just don't have time. Mm-hmm. And Melissa, you were telling us, not this time, but last time you told us all about how you use quizzes. Are you still using quizzes a lot with your teachers?
Not all the time. I sometimes use them in trainings just to keep them engaged and to show them how easy it is to use with students. So sometimes at the beginning of the training, if it's something that especially if it's something new I'm introducing them to, I will throw out a quizzes on it. And then they're like, well, we don't know anything about this. I go, I know, right? And then just have them do the quizzes. And then maybe at the end of the training, the teachers actually, can we do the quizzes again? You know, because, you know, I only got a 20% last time. Can I do it again? So, and I say, you know, you see how you react with it? The kids like that too. And I've observed some classrooms where the kids have asked, can we do fast and curious? Can we do fast and curious? I talked about that the last time, and it's so much fun. And yeah, I'm gonna have to check out that. I've heard of Mote, but I really don't, you know, when you got a list of things to check out, it's like, I'm usually late on some of those buses. I wait until everybody figures out how things work, and then I come around behind and go, okay, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Get all the details from them.
Too many tools. I can't keep up with them all, but that one is just really quick to use. So that's why I mentioned it in the slides. And Kim, have you got any suggestions for us then that we haven't mentioned?
So I'm not in a position where, you know, I'm personally doing grading. So I don't really, you know, have a lot of suggestions for teachers, other than one thing I've done just to sort of start off if I'm presenting something to students is use the feature in Google Meet using polls, and that way I can just quickly see, you know, where are we at? Like, what do they already know? So for example, we had a world language class and they were doing famous French artists. And there's a museum in Boston, Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and there was a heist there, an art heist. I don't even remember how many years ago, maybe like 15 years ago. And two of the artists the kids were going to be researching, their works were stolen from that museum. So, you know, I wanted to see if they even knew, you know, because we're like 20 minutes from Boston. I wanted to know, you know, did they even know that this museum existed? So I asked 2 questions, and it was just kind of interesting. You know, I asked which Boston museum did you know, where's there a famous heist? And, you know, and I gave them the option for, you know, A, B, C, or D, and then a true and false about which artist's paintings. And it was just a nice way for me to be able to quickly see, you know, where they were at. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. How about you, Gerardo? Have you got any tools to add for us here for feedback?
I was reading your that you have written, and I think that Bloom and Mood are differentiators, and they are really useful tools. And I don't use so much Mode. It calls me a little, but my voice tone. But Loom is an excellent tool for recording your feedback and give to your students the opportunity to answer in the same way. And I think it's a nice way to do a screencast with your students and give a good feedback.
Brilliant. Thank you. Totally agree 100%. And if we move to question 2 now, question 2 is about how to inspire your educators to use screencasting for differentiation. And I think I need to do a better job of this myself for differentiation. I think I can, and I think I should. So I'm going to come to somebody else to answer it. And Jessica, you were talking about modeling for your teachers.
Yeah, so I think, you know, one of the best ways that teachers can get a hold on something new, in particular with, you know, something that they would like to bring to their students, is if they first themselves adopt it and try to use it in their practice too. So for example, we this will date me, but, you know, many moons ago, you know, we wanted teachers to get really good at using iPads. So we were able to get each of our lead teachers iPads so they could practice themselves using it first before we would have expected them to incorporate that with the instruction with their students. And same way with peer feedback as well. That's a really difficult thing to instruct if teachers themselves have not experienced peer feedback, you know, amongst the staff, especially with people who are someone like me. You know, I'm not an evaluative supervisor, but I am someone who can give them some, I guess I could call it like free feedback. You know, there's no judgment here. And it's the same thing with peer feedback, essentially, in the classroom, that peers shouldn't necessarily be judging each other. They're just trying to, you know, help each other out in a more constructive way rather than an evaluative way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah. Thank you. And Kelly, I don't know if you can talk to us about your coaching cycle that you mentioned, but if you can, do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I was working with a physics teacher, and it's a heavy physics class, high level one, and some of the kids were struggling with just some of the difficult problems that they have, and she couldn't pinpoint that. So, you know, in the coaching cycle, we decided to, I think they used Flipgrid. She had the kids use Flipgrid, and they could, you know, explain they could explain it through, you know, through a whiteboard or whatever, but they had to show their thinking through the process. And she really liked that because she could pinpoint exactly where the errors, you know, were. It made that whole thinking visible. And then they could see each other's too, and they could give each other feedback and comments. But I thought it was a good use of a tool for her, and especially because, I mean, I couldn't do the work she's teaching. I mean, it's way over my head. So it was so heavy that it broke it down through the video, their thinking. But yeah, so she really liked that. Worked out well.
That's good. Thank you. And Roxy, you were talking about modeling for your teachers, which I've seen some of your videos on Twitter that I mentioned last time that are just amazing. But you were also talking about struggling to create quiet spaces for students to record when you go back into class. Have you managed to create those spaces yet?
No, I'm actually this week about to go help out with the Flipgrid lesson. So this will be kind of the first attempt. But I was thinking about that as I was planning, is one of the benefits of everyone being distance learning is everyone had I mean, I don't know about quiet, but everyone had their own space at least. And I was like, oh, I remember part of the challenges of using Flipgrid in the classroom was just trying to find little, spots under your desk, or I know people built those like cardboard boxes that would have the little sound barriers. Of course, all the fancy people that got lucky got those cute little Flipgrid pods or whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think strategically, like, how are all these kids in the same classroom going to find places to record? And this is kind of just a getting to know the features thing, so I don't think it's quite as a big deal now, but I definitely going to have to strategize a little bit moving forward.
I've never heard of a Flipgrid pod. I didn't know they existed.
No?
But
They're so cute. I feel like you just need to like search the hashtag on Twitter and you'll see people. I think they give them out sometimes as like prizes, or I'm not sure if anyone else knows, but I'll see people like, oh, got my Flipgrid pod, and it looks like I don't know, like a little tent. Like it's kind of like this like triangle thing. It's very cute.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit worried about differentiation when I go back to the classroom, because at the moment, if I'm struggling, I just send them out into 5 different breakout rooms and they work individually or whatever. So I don't know how that's going to be. What do you think? Will it be easier or more difficult in the classroom? What do you think, Jessica? Oh, she's put...
Sorry, I was just putting the Flipgrid pods in the chat. They're like these cute little green tents. You're like camping in the classroom. But I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. I think I think teachers are gonna find a way or make a way, to make it work. But in terms of space, you know what? I had a big dream, a big wonder, as I was considering this question. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, as school buildings are being built now, they make a physical place for breakout rooms? How cool would that be? That classrooms could now be constructed for, I know, wouldn't that be wonderful? If we're thinking about how wonderful digital breakout rooms are just sitting in our homes, how great would it be if our schools were actually built around an idea where we could work in small pods, and there would be ways to pull some sound screening down or around, or just something very simple, a simple divider. I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about.
I think you're going to design that one day. I feel like it's going to be called like the Barberry design or something.
I have to come up with a snappy name,
And Katie, you were talking about co-teaching with your teachers, and I think, just tell me about that. How do you find the time? That's what I need to ask you.
Well, it's really as part of my the coaching cycles that I got started. Our kindergarten and first grade teachers got new carts partway through the year this year, and it was the first time. So they were really who I focused on. And instructional coaching is the only hat that I wear right now, other than helping tech support here and there. So I do have the flexibility in my schedule to go out and teach with these teachers. And I've done some co-teaching with our virtual teachers, and I've done some co-teaching within our traditional classrooms. But what we've actually been doing the last couple of weeks in a couple of my kindergarten classes is Flipgrid. And it's been so fun. And they are right now at tables like kindergarten often is, and about 3 to a table. So it's kind of hard when you start thinking about how are you going to have these little kids have a quiet space. But really what we've done is we've had 2 of the kids whisper practice what they're going to say on their Flipgrid while one's recording. And then when the one's finished recording, they kind of say, hey, it's your turn. And they start to watch the videos of the other ones as they're coming in. So that's how we kind of combated that, everybody recording at once. Because unfortunately, they're, not able to with the COVID precautions in place that we have, kids aren't spreading out and going to corners and other parts of the room as much as they have, at other times, which is unfortunate. They need that, but that's a whole nother story. But that doesn't, so they're not screencasting that way, and I haven't used that tool on Flipgrid with students, but I do know that capability is there, that they can share their screens and do that as well. So
that's cool. I really like that idea because it also facilitates peer feedback as well, doesn't it? If they're doing something at a slightly different time. I'm going to use that definitely when I go back to the classroom.
It does. And, in kindergarten, peer feedback's really hard to get them to be valuable feedback, but they love getting the feedback no matter what it is, even if it's just the little like button that they click, Yeah,
just a smile.
Like adults.
Thank you. So there's lots of questions that I had about Flipgrid, but you've already answered those. So let's move on to question 3. And question 3 was about, if I can find it, that's question 2. Question 3 is about, oh yes, and you get some amazing answers for this, and I was just like, wow, yeah, they're right. So this is about what are the better ways we can try to gain a better understanding of those we are coaching and the ways in which they receive and produce information. And Kelly, you said you were curious on this one and you had a question basically to ask everybody else, which we talked about a little bit on Saturday, but I'll let you ask your question.
Yeah, yep. It is just how important relationships are with the coaching cycle, that trust relationship. And I just think when, you're talking to teachers about their practice, it's a very personal conversation. So if you don't have that relationship or trust, it's hard to really move forward. So I worked in some of the coaching cycles this year. I had new teachers. I did not know them. And I just jumped right into the coaching cycle. And I thought, wow, I should have built some relationship before I moved right into that. It took a little bit longer to build that relationship and to really move forward with the coaching cycle because of that. So I think next year, especially with the people I don't know, spending some time, to build that beforehand, especially the newbies. And I didn't know what do you do? I mean, we do, there's trainings and things like that, but I need to maybe just do some stop and visits and just get some connections with them before I jump into it.
Something that you said there makes me want to ask you all another question, because I found that because I know most of my teachers, there are about 65 of them, so I know them all because we work kind of together. But I've been really surprised when I've started coaching these people, they are totally different from how I thought they were before. And I've completely changed my approach to how I approach those people, because before as a teacher, I might have been like, oh, they're a bit lazy, and I'm not like that at all, and they're not like that at all. So it's like completely different. I just wondered if you experienced anything like that, or was it just me?
And I noticed that some want you with them the whole process, and some are like, come in and let's try this the first time together because I want this to be messy with with you too. And then others are like, no, I want to go try it myself. And then I want you to come in and we'll work together. So it's, there is a lot of differentiation, going on with what they, how they want to go through the cycle. And I let them lead, whatever. I mean, I might encourage and nudge along the way to make sure we stay focused, but, I do let them lead the way.
And I'm going to mention Roxy here. Katie was so impressed by what Roxy wrote in the slides, and so was I. So Roxy, it was about open questions, and you've always been talking to us about open questions, and it sounds like you've kind of got that right now because it sounded amazing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I don't know where. I feel like I read it in an article. I don't want to take credit for that, but it's something I was reading about. And I've talked about really been working on not jumping to solutions, not jumping to answers, but just trying to ask questions and get to know teachers. And it's just like Kelly said, I think before I always felt like I had a rush, everyone felt like it feels like everything's in such a hurry, but the truth is like then you don't get the effects that you want. Like you're not going to get those transformational effects if you don't stop and get to know them, like she was talking about. So asking them what they've tried before and why they think it didn't work, I feel like opens up this really, really interesting conversation when they start getting into, from their perspective, what went wrong or why wasn't it optimal, or and I think it's so interesting because there's sometimes when they'll tell me the reason they think it didn't work, and in my head I'm like, if I would have seen that, I wouldn't have necessarily assumed that was it, like not working. And so then sometimes it leads to this conversation about like, okay, what does success look like to you, or what does learning look like to you? Like it leads to these really interesting conversations that I don't know that we would have gotten to, without asking that question. And so I wish I could remember where I read that, but it's been one of my favorite things to ask when that situation comes up. So.
Brilliant. Thank you. And then Jessica, you were talking about being visible, and is it practicable? Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah. Going off what Kelly said about maybe, just doing some walkthroughs or just being out, out and about. I know that for someone who's in the role of a full-time coach, that might be a little more practicable, but I know a lot of us are doing half and half, or maybe all teaching and also all coaching at the same time. So I don't know how much actually being seen in your building or in your classroom or with your teachers is as practicable as it is for someone who's just full-time focused on coaching. But part of me does wonder if now, especially that many of us are coming back together again in the physical space for the first time in a long time, if there isn't a new emphasis on actual FaceTime and actual conversations as opposed to electronic, even if it is live, live electronic. That's just something I was musing about.
Any thoughts, comments from anybody else on that one?
I've been trying to think of, people have shared all these really awesome ideas for how they like visit and like start to build relationships and things like bringing in candy and all these little like cutesy little things. And I love these ideas, but I'm like, can we do that? Can we hand things out? I don't even know the rules anymore for what people like. Do I have to bring gloves, like, and hand out little bags of candy?
Roxy, get the tongs. You got to get the tongs.
Or like shoot them out of like little like, air guns or something. Like, how do you do this? But I mean, I want to do that. I think it's important now that we're finally starting to be, I heard someone describe it as 3D. It's because face-to-face can also be online. So it's 3D people, like being with 3D people. So I want to take advantage, but I just feel like there's so many new rules, about what you can and can't do. So I guess just going by and like elbow bumping people.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Roxy. I do have a name for those pre-pandemic. They were called barberry bribes, and it was a bowl of wrapped candy, and it was Barberry would bribe you for your participation, and I bribed a lot of young minds that way.
We can't do anything in our college. We can't, and the teachers have to disinfect the door handles after every session and wash it down, and we can't. Students have to face forward. They're not supposed to do pair work and talk to each other, so it's really quite restrictive. Yeah, I'm happy to be online. I think it's easier for me. And Katie, I'm going to come back to you because you were talking as well the same thing about making a conscientious effort to listening more. How's that going? Because it's really
pretty good. I tend to be more of a listener and a taker inner, if you will, than a real big talker. But sometimes I do find myself, I think when you're more comfortable with a topic than the people that you're with in the room, you do tend to talk and share your ideas rather than listen to what they need to say more. So depending on my comfort level, either with the person that I'm working with and how well we know each other, or with the topic that we're talking about, it really depends on how well I listen versus share what I know. And that, it's an interesting balance to try and figure out. As far as snacks in our district, as long as we're not giving to the kids, we can give whatever we want to other adults. They don't have to take it if they don't want.
I like Katie's point about the listening, because oftentimes I'll find that teachers will come to me and say, here's what my thing is. And they might even send an email, here's what I need help with. And so my mind's going, and okay, they need help with this A, B, and C. But really, A, B, and C is what brought up what they really need help with, that they don't verbalize if they don't get a chance to speak it out. And so when someone, and I need to do, so I'm glad you brought that up, Katie, because I need to do more listening in that sense, because I here's my problem, and I need help with this problem. And sometimes if I just go off of that, then I leave and I feel like maybe they still didn't get their need addressed, and they leave a little frustrated because, okay, yeah, she gave me this tool, but something's still not right, because maybe that wasn't the problem. That was the, I don't know, the path or the whatever it is that covered up or carried their problem along, but the underlying problem was something else. My kids don't know how to use this device. No, really, your kids don't know how to communicate. And so the communication is the issue, but you don't hear that until they get a chance to speak it out. So I'm trying. I'm
Well, I
trying.
think that
Thank you for
happens.
bringing that up.
I think that happens so easily in email too, because everybody's concise. They try and just get the question out, and we try and just get the answer back. But, we don't necessarily really understand the problem. And I think sometimes I give such a simplistic answer, and they probably think that I think they're an idiot, and they're like, well, I did try that, but.
I think that happens a lot with classroom management, what they feel is a classroom management issue versus what might just be an engagement issue. Like, that's the most common one. I think that, like, when you start like digging into it, and that's a hard one, I think, to help get teachers to uncover. And I think it's especially important on those that they are the person that like points that out, because if you come at them like, oh, your kids aren't engaged, I mean, I think that, that's a hard thing to hear. But if you can like ask them the questions that get them there, then I think that's really powerful. But I think that's really difficult, because they tend to see it as a management issue right away.
Oh, that's such a good, Roxy, that's such a good point. I mean, and that takes me back to Francis, what you said in the slow chat, about having the coachees have the opportunity to collaborate with each other, and have some of these conversations, and then how important maybe allowing them to, I mean, I don't want to say allow. I mean, people are going to do what they want to do, regardless of what I say, I can't do anything to stop that. But I mean, even if you do see a mistake coming, and if it's a mistake that isn't, damaging or hurtful to anyone, sometimes it's a mistake that needs to be made in order for learning to happen maybe a little faster. So Francis, I really, you and Roxy seem to be, kind of in the same thing.
I find it hard to ask questions sometimes, or sometimes I try sticking to the questions and the teacher will just give me, I don't know. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I might have to say something here. So yeah, but I'm working on it. I'm trying. Okay, and then Kim, have you got anything you want to add to that one?
I was just going to say, so sometimes I find, it depends on who I'm talking to, what kind of a relationship I have with them. And if I don't really know them, or don't really feel like I have a relationship with them, or maybe I don't really like them, I'm like frantically trying to find something that I have in common with them. And so, I try really hard to be a good listener, but then I might get overexcited if I find something that, we have in common. So it sometimes feels like, that gets in the way of the process, because they're not having the opportunity to say, well, this is the problem. And, this is why I think this is a problem, because I'm so busy like, oh, no kidding. You do that? Oh, I do that too. So it's just, that's my social awkwardness sometimes.
No, I totally hear what you're saying, 100%. And sometimes you just get excited by an idea and you just can't help it, can you? I mean, I know, like, I'm going to move on to question 4 now, because this is the one about portfolios, and I know lots of people wanted to talk about portfolios. So Kelly, yours were funny because you said, yeah, they're great. I need to practice what I preach. So I'm going to hand over to you so you can preach.
Yeah, this is training that we started last week in the district. So we really hadn't shared a lot with Google Sites, and just did that last week, and they really liked it. I mean, the teachers are liking it because we've gone so digital that their Google Drives are a mess, and they're seeing that they can kind of, make a library, in a site with all the resources that they have, and organize that. But even that in itself, like, how do you start? Because that's a monster. So they're just, even little tips like, start a folder, and anything, that you think you want to put on your Google site, just start adding in that one folder. Like, we all need another folder in our Drive, but, just to start organizing it that way. But I've created a few Google sites for, resources and that, but I really need to make better use of the Google site, because it's such an easy tool. In fact, that's what the teachers that I trained last week, they're like, oh, this is easier than Google Slides. Like, there's not a lot of tools, you have 3 tabs and that's about it. But so I started, and I don't know, like, just playing around and just creating now one for a coaching portfolio. And I'm not even sure what I should put in it. I'm just kind of following the Google curriculum and just, made different, tabs for that. But yeah, I need to use it more, because I didn't have examples to show. I mean, I had a few, I made a game board for them to do, and here's the resource page, but they want to see examples of how teachers set it up. So, and at their level, at their grade level, I'm a high school, so they're like, that's what they want to see. And there was not a lot out there. There were some, but not a whole bunch. That's it.
Thank you. And Roxy, I have to thank you for your idea that you put in the slides, because I thought it was a really good idea. Just tell us about it. And I already spoke to my team, and they're thinking about following it up.
Yeah, I loved this question of this whole idea. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what a neat way to model for teachers, especially coming off of, we were talking about from the Caffeinated Coaches podcast about reflection, and trying to talk about how we could work that in a little bit more with some of our teacher technology leaders. And then when this came up, I was like, wow, that's a really great idea. And also, just so, you as a coach see, I think, for instance, you mentioned that, like, you see your own growth throughout the year. So when you would put out there, like, how could you organize that? I think you could do it with, by the curriculum, but I was also looking, because we happen to be looking at different sets of standards recently, and I really like the DLP standards. And I was like, oh, I could see you using those the way you would teach students to use standards to make their own portfolios and then show evidence of how you met that. Or if anyone's done the ISTE's kind of got kind of a similar thing with the artifacts. So I thought that would be a really cool way to do that, and then have a little blurb, kind of explaining where you are in that standard, how you think it could grow. But you're right. I tried to search, like, teacher portfolios. There's some more. I was like, tech coaches, instructional coaches. There's not a whole lot of examples that are out there. I don't think there's a huge, market of them right now. So, but I do really, really like that idea. And I've actually been using Google Sites more. Kelly mentioned I hadn't used them a ton, but ever since that last Google PD they did for the trainers with the Future Design School, when they used theirs, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing way to organize PD, especially when you're doing little breakout groups. So I tried it the last time, and I loved it. I thought it was a nice change from just using slides all the time, and then having resources there that they could leave with in an organized way. So yeah, I like that idea.
Can I just piggyback off of what Roxy just said? So 2 times now I've used Google Sites for evaluative purposes. So in Massachusetts, as a school library media specialist, I am considered a teacher, but my standards are kind of different than what the teacher standards are for educator evaluation. So I set up a Google site, because I use Google Sites for my media center for the website. Okay, so that's how I deliver all of my instruction to students and teachers. But I took all of the standards, and each standard became a different page. And if there were sections to the standards, they became sub pages on that thing so that my evaluator could just go to page, and then pulled all of my evidence in. So, sometimes it was images, sometimes it was, because this was a few years ago before it was so easy to pull things from your Google Drive. So, but then when I got my instructional technology specialist licensure from the state of Massachusetts, I submitted my stuff, got denied the first time, submitted more stuff, got denied the second time. So the third time I was like, even though my boss said, I don't think they want to see a website, I was like, no, I'm going to do it as a website. And I did the same thing and showed did all of the standards. These are the things that were required in order to get this certification, and put them, all in with the standard listed and how I met the standard. And that's how I got my licensure without doing anything else other than putting it that way. So I think it's a really good way to keep a portfolio. So.
Thank you. So now I have to get to work. Maybe not tomorrow. And Jessica, when I read your thing in the slides, you just made me feel so guilty because I hadn't already done it. So tell us, talk to us.
So so in the chat, I put what I'm using right now for my portfolio. And in the chat, I've used Adobe Spark Page. But Google Sites are just as good, So honestly, when we're thinking about portfolios, in my view, it's like whatever people like to use, even if it's maybe a couple of folders on your Google Drive, just as long as it's something that's documented. And then you can make it pretty for a different purpose later, because we really want our teachers to be able to be fluent in telling their own story. We want teachers to be fluent in communicating with each other about the projects they're working on. I know this is coming a little bit later in our chat, but gosh, so often, we see some teachers doing some really incredible things. And you know what these teachers think? Oh, it's just my job. It's just something that I do every day. It's no big whoop. It's no big deal. It's just what I'm supposed to do. And people who are on the outside looking in, they're like, are you kidding? This is amazing, amazing work. So, I mean, I don't want to ruin the end of my tale here, but I think the idea is with our teachers as well with our students, digital portfolios are now a way that professionals in our world today are using as essential currency to be judged by their professional wealth. And so for our students, it's more of a life skill now that they should be learning how to document this, because most likely when they graduate and enter into whatever field that is, they will probably need to produce a professional portfolio. Now, maybe they won't use stuff from high school or middle school, but they will at least have developed the knowledge and understanding of what an effective portfolio could be, like what pieces and artifacts make up an effective portfolio. And where teachers are concerned, and I swear I'm almost done talking, and where teachers are concerned, I really feel that in absence of teachers who are passionate and understanding of our profession, in absence of their voice, oftentimes we have other individuals who may have different agendas filling that silence with things that may or may not be true about a profession that teachers are like, hey, I'm in the classroom every day, and that's really not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm hearing. So this can be another great way to help empower teachers to tell their story. And so as we're climbing that ladder of change, we're seeking to change a system in a way that would make it safer and healthier for all students. I think teachers being able to tell their stories a little bit more effectively is kind of a must now, because heaven forbid someone else tell the story and get it wrong. Yeah, if we don't tell our stories, yeah, Roxy, somebody else will. Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. And you're making me feel even worse that I've not done it already.
No, but listen, Melissa said that this year she had to let go the portfolios. And you know why? Because everyone's just trying to survive here. You had to choose what's the most important thing. And you know what? This year portfolios probably aren't that. It's getting your kids connected. There's like a hierarchy, isn't there, Melissa? There's like a hierarchy of need, and portfolios, while it's important, didn't quite make the massive need that a lot of people are really struggling hard with,
Yeah, but you made a very good argument for it. And I think we have to prioritize it now, right? So Katie, can you tell us, because you talked about a colleague who's doing university portfolios for their students in binders. So how are you feeling now after that story?
So
hierarchy of needs made me feel so much better. We're meeting those. So yeah, it's a classroom. It's actually our teacher academy. So the students who are taking college level courses in high school to prepare to be teachers, and she has them put these beautiful portfolios together, but they're a physical binder. And she knows, and I know, we all know that the right thing for them to do is to have something digital that they can just send off or pull up, if they are in an interview. And actually with everything being, they do some competitions and things like that. So a lot of their artifacts are actually already digital this year because nothing was in person. So it would have been a great year to make that transition, but I think it is just that situation of with everything going on and trying to learn new ropes in so many other ways, it just wasn't a year for them to do that. So next year, got my fingers crossed that we'll be there. And I think too, once you just have something, if I just get something together for that teacher to see and wrap her mind around, it will be a little easier, she just to have an example to show what it could be and how simple it can be.
Yeah.
So
brilliant. Thank you. And I'm going to come back to you again, Katie, because you talked about the badges for your, and I really loved how you'd got that set up with the little tasks. Thought that was brilliant. So tell us a little bit about that.
When I was in the classroom, I taught, we did departmentalization just for science, social studies, and technology, and I taught technology. And one of the components of that class that was optional was a badging system. So basically, there was an activity for each of the main Google apps that the students had to work through and follow the directions. And once they did that and submitted it, they could earn their digital badge. And I just used Flippity to do that, but I set it up through a Google site. So every activity was there, and then the Flippity links were there so that they could see their badging and things like that.
Yeah,
but it was fun.
Yeah, I can see me using that with some of our teachers who aren't very, I don't know how to say it, they're not very fast with technology maybe, then I can see that working really well with them. So thank you.
Right. So they have the time to just get in and look and explore rather than on demand with you
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Has anybody else got anything to say or add or question before we go? Because I can see it's 3 minutes past now. So it's been amazing for me anyway to hear all your amazing things and feel like I'm getting told off. So it's been amazing for me. So thank you very much. No, but it's good because you make me accountable and I will do things that I might not have done if you hadn't have said it. So it's amazing. Thank you. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time, I hope. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.